Alright, draft onlookers, it's time for another power rankings video, and this time we're going to use someone who is big in the draft boards on the Big Footy forums. PMBangers has been doing draft stuff for as long as I can remember, and is very thorough and very detailed in the work that is provided. And today the power rankings come out, and it's actually a little bit different to what we're used to seeing. He actually put it into tiers and gave a description of what that tier meant to him based on what he's watched and how he feels the players fall into it. So I thought it's something that looks a little bit different, has a bit of a different feel to it, and maybe gives some different perspective on some different players potentially. And also maybe does send some shivers up the spines of Richmond and Essendon supporters, now rightfully worried that West Coast could pick Sullivan Roby at pick 2, and we both might miss out. So let's bring up the draft first and foremost, or the power ranking, should I say. And I'll go through this and I'll read out the description of the tiers as well, so you can sort of correlate it and see how it all works. So as you can see, we've got William Dersma at the top, and PMBangers has called it Tier Dersma. I'm reading exactly what he's written here. I feel I've made it pretty clear that I see Dersma as pretty far and away the best player in the draft, with some really exciting traits for the next level that should hold up across a variety of positions. I imagine he'll start his career at the half-back, that transitions into midfield with more conditioning behind him, with his athleticism, consistency, and IQ and skills are all good enough to suggest he could be an AA level player at his peak. So I think we've all fairly well established that Will Dersma seems to be the universal pick for number one, whether you're looking at the Herald Sun, Cal Toomey, ESPN, Craft of the Draft, wherever you're looking, William Dersma has been number one. I think that's the most consistent part of this entire draft. Everything else is up for debate. So nothing more certain than draft night of Dersma not going one and throwing that all into thin air. But yeah, Dersma number one here for PMBangers. On to the second tier. So tier 2, I'll read out what the tier description is first. So tier 2, mostly made up of players that I think have some genuinely elite traits that'll hold up at the next level, but some drawbacks that might hold them out of the elite bracket at AFL level. Whether that be disposal, athleticism, or consistency, I'm still confident these guys will be up at the top end of their respective teams at their peak, with the upper end of their potential being All-Australian level. So in this group, tier 2, we've got Dylan Patterson, who's obviously tied to the Gold Coast Suns, Cooper Duff-Tytler, Sullivan Roby, Dan Annable, who's tied to the Brisbane Lions, and Zeke Uland, who's tied to the Gold Coast Suns. So not great news for all of us who are competing in the open draft, given that 3 of those players are tied to academies, but it does sort of really suggest that there will be some bids coming through quite highly for Zeke Uland and Dylan Patterson in particular. Unfortunately, it does look like Gold Coast have scrounged enough points together to cover any real possibilities here, which is a bit annoying, but I hope that the clubs bid on him nonetheless to make him earn it. No, don't give him any free hits or have to use less points. Let's make him have to absorb as much as possible. But if we have a look at the 2 only open draft players in this tier 2 are Cooper Duff-Tytler and Sullivan Roby. Now, in recent days, maybe a week at a bit of a stretch, there's started to become a bit more speculation around West Coast potentially taking Sullivan Roby at pick number 2. Which is really, really interesting because I guess we all thought he'd be there at 3, definitely for us if we wanted him. And I think we all feel that he most certainly wouldn't have got through Essendon after us if we didn't take him. But now it seems like he could be at the higher end, which is quite extraordinary, given where we were only a few months ago. But on the bait, like if West Coast did take him at 2, I think it really does turn the draft on its head. I still don't know whether we would take Duff-Tytler at 3. I think we would get a lot of offers for our pick at number 3 if he's still there, and that might be from Essendon, it might be from Melbourne, maybe less so Melbourne. I do think we'll get some offers, so there could be something to listen to there, but it will create a serious headache, one that I'm not prepared for, but we'll have to see how it plays out. Moving on to tier 3. So tier 3, as per PMBangers, is described as players that possess one elite trait or are pretty good across the board, and I'm pretty confident they'll be above average to good at the very least, and most have similar ceilings to the tier 2 players from his point of view. So that tier 3 list, we've got Sam Grill, Jacob Farrow, Sam Cumming, Xavier Taylor, Aidan Schubert, Dyson Sharp, Harry Dean, Harley Barker, Mitch Marsh, Josh Lindsay, Lockie Doverston, and Oscar Taylor. So quite a handful of names there, and some that have been spoken about in circles related to Richmond, some that haven't been linked to us. Obviously, Harry Dean is a Carlton father-son prospect who could be bid on within the first 5 to 10 picks potentially, just to make him earn that as well. But it's a really interesting tier, this tier 3 in particular, because this sort of bracket is where we would kind of land if we were to split picks with someone. So if we were to take pick 3 and split pick 4 or vice versa, ideally you'd land another pick in that bracket, the tier 3 bracket, and then maybe a future. Because I do think if we're going to split, we're going to want a future first. I think that almost feels non-negotiable, and it may not eventuate, but I feel like that's where we're kind of aiming for. But there's quite a few players in that tier 3 pool. Sam Grill, obviously strongly linked to us. Great running prowess with the endurance and the 20-metre sprint. Did some great work with our VFL program. Jacob Farrow is a really interesting one. I know people are going to be deterred from him because he's from Perth, but if you got talent, you got talent. And yeah, he does some good work off halfback, went through the midfield as well. He would be one that you would consider at a split pick. Sam Cumming, I think you would absolutely take. It would be interesting to know how close some of these players were from being in tier 2. Because I suppose in my mind, I've always had Sam Cumming and so a few others a little bit higher. Same as Xavier Taylor, probably another one that's up a little bit higher too. But interesting, a lot of players to pick from there. We'll move on to the final group, tier 4. So tier 4 by PMBangers description is some guys in here I really like. Some I'm not huge on, but the tier as a whole is made up of prospects I see AFL level potential in, but I'm not super confident they'll make it for one reason or another, but still expect them to get drafted. So in this list, we've got Max King, Taylor Byrne, Harry Kyle, Jai Murray. Now, there's a name to potentially keep an eye out for at our pick 38. There's a strong probability that Gold Coast won't have enough points by that stage unless they've done some other trades to get some picks in, so they might be able to cover it. But he could be one that's looked at pick 38 possibly. Tyler Williams, Blake Thurgold, that's another one that could be a shout for pick 38 too. And just a reminder that pick 38 is probably going to become somewhere around pick 33, 32 roughly, once all these other picks get absorbed by the Gold Coast match bids and Brisbane match bids and so on and so forth. That pick will improve, so it won't be as late as what it is now. Isaac Waller, Hunter Holmes has been spoken about quite a bit. Archie Littlewick, Jack Ison, Cameron Nam. Lewis Emmett is an interesting one as well, if he was still there at 38. Blake Benet is another interesting one that would be there. Hugo Mukunda, Zach McCarthy, Siobhan Philippou, who famously come out today and said that he would pick himself at number 1, but that's not being arrogant. He just backs his ability. I mean, fair play to the kid. Backs his own ability, but I think he'll go relatively, when I say relatively high, I reckon he'll go somewhere in the teens. Just because he does have a pretty high ceiling that's not really fully known. Oliver Greaves, Lockie Carmichael, and Bo Adensall. So that rounds out the tier 4 list for PMBangers power ranking. So just a really interesting way to look at it and a really interesting way to do it. It's not a way we've seen it done before, so that's why I thought it was worth doing a video on. Let us know what you think of those rankings. Would you have any players in different spots? And seeing it broken up like this, does it change your view at all on splitting a pick potentially? Because for me, it almost seems more logical to do it if all those players in group or tier 3 are relatively even, which was kind of what I was feeling anyway. Then if we take the gun player out of tier 2 and we get a slightly later pick in tier 3, but we get a future first as well, that would seem like a really good outcome. But it just depends on the player type you want to take, I guess. There's so many ways for it to work. But keen to hear what you all think in the comments below. PMBangers, awesome job, mate. Always love your draft work. Very, very thorough as always. And make sure you like and subscribe for more draft and Richmond content. And until the next one, go Tigers.